I am so conservative.
Rationalize in my head. These are things I read in
And
the
I'm going to talk about Willow Creek.
Okay.
Willow Creek, a few years back, had
I
invited...
remembered at the time when Will Rogers said, I don't belong to any organized religion. I'm a Baptist.
Yeah. I am so conservative. If you didn't jump to conclusions, you might not get any exercise. I am so conservative. And welcome to the Unknown Webcast. Trigger warnings have become more necessary these days for those who live in fear of hearing, reading, or being otherwise exposed to an idea which may potentially cause an uncomfortable or challenging thought. This is that trigger warning. I really am so conservative I can't turn left even when I'm driving. And this includes being theologically conservative. I want to know and believe what is true, and I'm willing to challenge my beliefs. So if you're easily offended, this is not a safe space for you. Today is May 25, 2021, and this is broadcast number 241. Today, our friend, Pastor David Van Bebber, joins us to talk about meme with caution, why Christians shouldn't share the gospel, the meme gospel. My name is Don Vino, and I'm president of Midwest Christian Outreach, Inc. in Wonder Lake, Illinois, which produces the Unknown Webcast. And our senior researcher is still Ron Enzel.
He keeps trying to get rid of me, but
today's webcast. Yeah, I wouldn't try to do that. Oh, maybe I would.
Well, greetings from sunny Florida, where the palm trees came out, saw their shadows, and now we have 12 more months of summer. Our sponsor for this edition of the Unknown Webcast is Two Great Faiths that taste great together, Reese's Jesus Buddha Cups. And our regular legal disclaimer, our guest on today's webcast, insert name here, let's see who is that. Oh, David Van Bebber, yes, has no connection whatsoever to any of the satirical content of the Unknown Webcast, hereafter known as the Webcast, although we probably will not mention it again. This satirical content includes any and all commercials, end credits, puns, smart remarks, or anything else that might fall under the definition of satire. In the meantime, Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. bears no liability for or responsibility for anyone's opinions regarding this satirical content, straight from the desk of our law firm, Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. Notice the opinions expressed on this webcast are ours and should be yours too. To ensure your continued access, if you enjoy it or if you just want to inflict it on someone else, please go to midwestoutreach.org. Click on the yellow donate button and contribute as you feel led. And don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite video channels. So welcome, David Van Bebber.
I am really glad to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me. I am very pleased for an opportunity to talk about something of great significance, meme theology.
Well, it's a very neglected aspect of theology.
It is.
Meme I don't, you have to really look hard to find it in most theological treatments.
Well, it is, and it goes back a long way. As Francis of Assisi said, preach the gospel, and when necessary, use memes.
How about that meme that says where Abraham Lincoln says, "Don't believe everything you see on the internet"?
That's right. He did. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So
yes, it's such a privilege to be with you all. Thank you so much.
Yes,
for the
opportunity. We know. People say that all the time, and we acknowledge it. In the meantime, we bring people on here just to be meme to them.
Good.
Let's hear the definition of a meme. For the longest time, did you take French in high school, Don, or some?
No, Spanish.
Because
at the time I attended high school, I took Spanish.
Because I remember it seemed like a year or more, I had to correct your pronunciation of the word meme. You wanted to say mem. And mem, of course, is M-E with a circumflex M-E, which is a French word meaning self or same.
Hmm.
Je suis toi-même, yourself, Uh, let's see, plus choses changent, the more things change, plus c'est la même chose. Même shows same things. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. That's a French saying. So meme is a French word, and Don kept on using the French word instead of meme, which I thought when I first saw it, it was how you pronounced it. And then I kept hearing people say meme. Okay, whatever.
I thought it was Mimi.
Meme, or meme. How is your meme?
So now that we just discussed the etymology, what does
I don't even know the etymology. What does it mean?
Well, I do think that it's always important that we, at least whenever we're dealing with a cultural artifact, that we recognize that definitions are important. Logic presupposes that definitions are useful. And so we want to narrow what it is that we're talking about, because when we offer definition, it shows relationship, it removes ambiguity, reduces vagueness, and it increases our vocabulary. Thank you, Douglas Wilson, for all these great things. And it also helps us explain theoretical concepts, and it influences our attitudes. So good job, Douglas Wilson, in your introductory logic textbook for helping me always understand why it's important to define our terms. And I think that that's key in a world where terms are so fluid oftentimes. And so let me provide what I think is a good definition. First, when you talk about memes in general, I think Merriam-Webster helps us a little bit. It's an idea, behavior, style, or usage that spreads from one person to another within a culture, or an amusing or interesting item, such as a captioned picture or video, or genre of items online, especially through social media. For our particular usage and our particular discussion, let me use just the idea that is often found in numerous textbooks, including Norman Geisler's Come Let Us Reason, when he talks about we can define terms by genus and difference. So genus of a meme is it's a statement. And what is the difference between that statement and other statements? It's a statement with a picture that communicates a political, social, theological, or moral truth claim. And so that is what I would define a meme as. If you don't know what a meme is, think of a picture with a text on it, and you've basically got it. And there's, again, another little definition. It's not always a picture, though. Sometimes it's a little bit of a video. A lot of times that's differentiated between a meme and a GIF, right? A GIF is a brief clip that maybe has a picture with a not a picture, but a video with a little few words, and sometimes absent a few words on it. So there is a meme, and we're going to look more at kind of more theologically grounded memes. If that
okay,
makes
now
sense.
when you say right, theologically grounded, so you're not saying we're talking about all memes at all times. And I don't always. I try to always be cautious about what I may share, because some memes are communicating a political statement, which may in fact be false. And so even though it might be humorous, and even though I would like to believe it, I shouldn't forward it, because I'm forwarding false and misleading information.
Yeah. Well, and I think that one of the things that we want to, at least from a Christian worldview, is recognize that no meme is created in a vacuum. There is always a worldview that is the foundation by which that usually a pithy statement is being made. And some theorists have basically categorized, and a lot of communication theorists and media theorists, you'd be surprised how many of them have talked about the use of memes, whether it is how memes can be used to promote your library, or how it is that memes are used when it comes to a political campaign, or even how it is that memes are used when dealing with something like a social movement like BLM, or we think even more recently how memes are used when it comes to the anti-vax COVID type of discussion. And so memes are often categorized by theorists into basically four categories: relatable, mockery, obscurity, and parody. And I would say there's not a solid line or a brick wall that separates a relatable meme from a parody meme or from a mockery meme. And so there's a little bit of fluidity within those categories. They're not rough, hard set categories. You can think of them as sometimes having elements of both of those categories. And so for Christians, from a Christian worldview, when we're talking about memes, I want to be more particular when we're talking about theological memes, because that would be something that deals with the concept of God or the gospel or fits into a communication of our worldview. I think when we deal with a joke meme, that's one thing. When we deal with a statement that we're trying to use, whether it is to communicate our understanding of the gospel or whether it is to communicate our worldview, that's particularly where our interest is as apologists and as Christians, if that makes sense. So that would be much of the constraints of my discussion. And again, my research, hopefully, that I'll be presenting at the ISCA conference in 2022 will be in relation to theological memes.
So do you think you can use my song in that one?
And which one is that?
My song? Oh,
my song.
I won't sing it for you. I'll just give the lyrics. Pictures of cats that are being sarcastic. Screenshots from Star Wars are always fantastic. Babies and puppies and women who scream. These are a few of my favorite memes.
You wrote that song? Good.
I know, yeah.
So a lot of times, they are just simple little pieces. And it's interesting to me, Ron, because it's almost as if, and I don't know how many individuals in the audience or either of you two have read Neil Postman's book.
Do we have any individuals in our audience today?
Definitely.
Okay.
Neil. Well, they probably heard I was coming on, so they're like,
well, of course.
We don't want to deal with that.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Were you about to introduce amusing ourselves to death?
And he has this great statement. In much of the book, he's dealing with the idea of how individual self is created through media and what are the impacts of that. In one of the chapters, he deals with Huxley's and Orwell's books. And I wanted to pull just a little quote from there. He says, contrary to common belief among the educated, Huxley and Orwell did not prophesy the same thing. Orwell warns that we will be overcome by an internally imposed oppression, but in Huxley's vision, no big brother is required to deprive people of their autonomy, maturity, and history. As we saw it, people will come to love their oppression, to adore the technologies that undo their capacities to think. Memes have spread like wildfire. Of course, the term is first presented by Richard Dawkins in 1976, where he again coins the term, and it's a very interesting little element how he coins the term.
It came from him, that he was the one who did it. We can blame him.
Digital objects that riff on given visual, textual, or auditory form. They're then appropriated, recorded, and slotted
back. What year was this?
1976 is when Dawkins.
Did anybody have a clue about digital objects back then? I mean,
obviously he was on the forefront. He's gotten a lot of things wrong, but this is one thing that he was able to kind of see the spread of this. And
how
it's such an interesting,
there was internet usage even at that time.
Yeah, but it was. I mean, do you remember, Don? Do you remember the what do you call it? Gopher menus? I mean, hardly anybody could figure. You needed a whole internet catalog to get anywhere.
Right, and you really needed to be able to write in ASCII. So,
oh man, those were the days.
Well, and I like what Postman says as well in Amusing Ourselves to Death. Americans no longer talk to each other; they entertain each other. They do not exchange ideas; they exchange images. They do not argue propositions; they argue with good looks, celebrities, and commercials. A meme captures an argument that relates to the manner in which human beings in the digital information age exchange ideas. Now, as Christians, we're called to not be conformed any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind, Romans 12. And likewise, we are to contend for the faith once delivered, Jude 3. Likewise, we are to destroy arguments and hold every thought captive to obedience to Christ. So why is this important? I want to go back to one other media theorist who was actually an atheist, Marshall McLuhan, and his book, The Medium is the Message. Oftentimes, because we are individuals that jump on and use social media, we don't realize that we're being used by the mediums through which we communicate. In fact, our arguments are being dumbed down, dumbed down, dumbed down. So my plea is for Christians to be users of the medium and to do so in a thoughtful manner, because I don't know how many of you share memes. I share them frequently, probably more frequently than I should. And before I began to really think about it from a media and society lens, I did it just clicking share really quickly and not really unpacking what it is I'm doing. And that's what my call is. Think before you meme. And so that's kind of where I got this idea. Again, every meme is not neutral. When we talk about theological memes or political memes or social statements, a social statement at the end of the day is very much a theological statement because it has to do with the doctrine of man. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
And so our calling is to make sure that we are calling out the suppression of truth and unrighteousness that's often demonstrated through the ignorant sharing of memes. Oftentimes, worldviews that are being shared through meme sharing are not coherent, they're ignorant, and we can use the communication and the discussion of memes, if people will engage, to point people back to the gospel. So there's some of my pieces on that.
So some of the memes are merely provocative.
Bingo.
Hopefully they will spur additional discussion of the issues, but sometimes you just get into meme wars.
Oh, yeah. Exactly, Don. And this comes back to the statement. Obviously, this is a kind of a funny little topic, and I like that. But I actually think that there's significance, and I actually think that there's some scripturally grounded reasons by which Christians should, in fact, I believe we're called to use the communication patterns of the day. We're called to take the gospel into the marketplaces. Acts 17:17. Paul is doing that. We see so many ideas communicated through this. Then let's embrace that type of communication pattern and do so in a way that demonstrates our worldview. So why meme theology? I go back to Colossians chapter 2, where Paul says, "For I want you to know how great a struggle I have for you and those at Laodicea, and for all who have not seen me face to face, that their hearts may be encouraged, being knit together in love, to reach all the riches of full assurance of understanding of the knowledge of God's mystery, which is Christ, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. I say this in order that no one may delude you with plausible arguments.
Mm-hmm.
For though I am absent in the body, yet I am with you in spirit, rejoicing to see your good order and the firmness of your faith in Christ. Therefore, as you receive Jesus as Lord, so walk in him, rooted and built up in him and established in the faith, just as you were taught, abounding with thanksgiving. See to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit, according to human tradition, or according to the elements of the spirits of the world, and not according to Christ." At the end of the day, a meme is an argument. We often don't think about it that way. It's a rhetorical artifact. It's an argument for a worldview. So when we are sharing them, we're making worldview arguments. When we receive them, we need to not just see them as a funny little thing that we can click like and not actually think through. Because our like, while it might seem so silly, is oftentimes being monitored by someone. Oh, look, that person liked it.
So now I've got a whole directory of memes in my computer.
Yes, sir.
And in that directory, I've got many subdirectories, including a whole Monty Python subdirectory. So here's one of those memes. Thou shalt set thy clocks back 1 hour. One shall be the number of hours for thy clocks to be set back, not more than one nor less than one. By the way, this does qualify as a meme, right?
Yeah, that's a meme.
So
Certainly.
Now, do you just, you say you do memes maybe more than you should. I mean, are most of your memes like humor memes?
Yeah. And again, I think that that's one thing that we often, like, here's one reason why I think that this is an important conversation. When we share a meme like that, are we making a theological statement? No, we're making a joke. Obviously, it's a parody,
Right,
or it's mockery, right? But what is it mockery of? Well, it's mockery of something that
we
is,
have to do. We have to set our clocks back. And I have another one,
yeah.
by the way. The same one
Mhm.
is forward. I posted to remind my friends and myself that we're either going to lose an hour or gain an hour, right?
Yeah.
So
And
it's a functional meme in a way, but it's designed to get attention, get laughs, and also remind people of something that's practical.
yeah. And what I would say is a meme like that, from a Christian worldview, it's good. Maybe it does start some discussion.
Okay.
But so oftentimes I should have sent you some meme, what I would say, some theological memes that are shared that I think
Okay.
are a little incoherent with the
Okay.
Christian worldview, that I often see someone who is a Christian trying to share and communicate something about the gospel that I believe is fallacious.
So it sounds like, but before we get to that, you're saying that even a meme like this, we can look at from a Christian worldview perspective and evaluate it. And we can say, well, okay, it's humorous. That's okay. It's functional, though. It serves a good purpose.
Bingo.
And so, yeah, that from a Christian point of view is a good thing, right?
It's acceptable. Yeah, there's
Okay.
nothing wrong with that.
Now,
yeah, go for it.
I've also used Monty Python themes for my own theological agenda.
Yeah, I've seen some of your memes.
Here's another one. Is your prophet evangelical? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Say no more. Say no more. Because, and I'm making a statement here that there are a lot of professors, pastors, Christians, or whatever, who will use the term evangelical, but really, okay, they're really stretching the definition. So I'm making a theological statement in a humorous way. So I'm going to ask you now, how would you evaluate this particular use
from
of
a Christian worldview? The first thing that I would do, at least for me, is I'm going to recognize what is the argument that I'm trying to make, right? One of the things that we see is, now I am not on a boatload of social media platforms, right? So I don't do Twitter. I don't do TikTok. I don't do Twitch. I basically
Twitch.
Yeah,
there's one called Twitch.
Yeah, well, it's like a video streaming thing.
And I twitch when I use it too.
It sounds like somebody's just died and they're twitching. Okay, go ahead.
Or Snapchat or Instagram. I don't really use any of those. Right. So I recognize that oftentimes when you're sharing a meme, you're not actually providing much context for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You're just sharing the meme.
Well, sometimes it's like a lot of times mine will be in a thread. So hopefully that will supply the context.
Yes, it should. So the argument obviously is there's a broad definition of evangelicalism.
Or there are a lot of people who claim to be evangelical. This is what I'm trying to say there. By the wink, wink, nudge, nudge part, I'm trying to say there are a lot of people who claim the term, but really it's kind of spurious.
Yeah. So from a Christian worldview, you're making a comment on the reality that there are theological railings, guardrails that actually do allow for words to have meaning, right? And again, you're making a theological statement. You're presupposing the truth of the Christian worldview, right? There's objective truth to terms. Terms are not vague.
Right.
Now, go for it. Yeah.
Well, no, I agree. Evangelical, you could argue, has suffered, but I think there still should be a core meaning to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that is making a theological statement. It's a corrective theological statement. And maybe some will relate to it, maybe not. Will that spur a discussion? My goal oftentimes in sharing a meme is to spur or to continue the discussion. We want to point things back. If this is the medium and the mode by which people are sharing their arguments, viewing those things as arguments is incredibly important. Yeah.
Let me share an argument. and I won't comment on it. I'll just share it, and then we can talk about it, because it is a theological statement.
What is? Oh, this here.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
What's that doing?
I don't know.
Was flashing.
That's kind of weird.
Your share screen was weirding out.
Yeah, let me try it again. There we
Okay.
go.
Look at that. We can't feed all these people.
Now I
That would
created.
create
Oh, I got to
tremendous
find my
space.
version of that. Oh, I've got a version. I answered that one.
Okay.
Uh,
So there you go. You have someone that posted it out there. Are they an unbeliever or progressive, or, what are they trying to communicate theologically about this and their understanding of both scripture and culture?
Well, there's a few issues, and I always have a process by which I want to unpack a theological argument like that. The first thing is I like to step into it in the absurdity of the worldview that I believe it is propagating. Again, I think that Proverbs 26, 4 and 5 are just outstanding methods for that. And just to read that passage, because I do think it's really important. Proverbs chapter 26, verse 5, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. The first thing that I want to do when I'm dealing with any type of argument from a non-Christian worldview, and again, I need to, and I believe, and I call Christians to view memes as arguments. They're statements about some type of truth claim when you're dealing with the theological ones. Now, again, when you deal with the various different modes, relatable, mockery, obscurity, parody, right? Obviously, a theological one is trying to either make a mockery or it's trying to be relatable. It's actually, in a way, while it's making an argument, its argument is, see, Christians don't really care about people, right? That's how I see that argument.
Right.
Well, there's a problem with that. If you're a non-Christian, or if you are a liberal Christian, you actually want to, you're using scripture and presupposing that Jesus really walked and really did that. For that argument to have any validity, it has to presuppose that scripture is true. But wait, your position actually rejects that scripture is true. So that type of meme, if I'm going to try to now make a theological discussion here, because that's what it's opening to do, right? When you see that, they're wanting to get a reaction from Christians. Or maybe they're saying, see, I want to show you how dumb Christians are. They can't even be consistent with the statements of Jesus, or they say they believe the statements of Jesus, but they really don't. Well, I'm going to step into the absurdity of that worldview, because that's going to demonstrate the real problem with it. And so in my discussion, in responding to a meme like that, because I want to respond to memes like that, especially if it's a lost person that I'm friends with, I want to point them to the gospel. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in and say, that's interesting that you're assuming that Jesus really said that, but your worldview or your theological position can't even tell me if Jesus really did feed 5,000 people.
That's interesting.
It's presupposing that human beings have value and dignity worth saving.
Yeah.
But if
where'd you get that idea?
Bingo. Where did you get that idea?
Where'd you get that?
So who are you to call me as a Christian to affirm something that your worldview rejects? But here's the other issue. You can't even be consistent with your own worldview, because your own worldview says human beings are simply fizzing bags of protoplasm, highly evolved pond scum.
Right.
Where do you get the idea that we need to even be gracious and generous towards people? They're just not highly evolved enough. That's the problem. So why don't you let your Darwinianism play out?
Right.
And that would be my first response. My first response
that
is
would be
always
the first one.
Jump into the absurdity.
So here's my response. Now, of course, you pointed out something, would Jesus have ever said any of these things?
Yeah.
And obviously, these are my words, putting my words in Jesus' mouth. And I think people understand that when they look at some of these memes.
I love how you responded to it with the meme. That is key as well, because we live in, and sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm not trying to.
No, go ahead.
Because we live in an immediacy world, because we now, and I think that Postman is right on, we've devolved so much that it's attention very brief attention span. They're not going to read a they're not going to read a syllogism, a deductive argument. They wouldn't even know how to tell you. The majority of people wouldn't even know how to tell you whether it's a valid and true syllogism, right? So you writing a syllogism or making a long inductive argument isn't going to say as much as you responding with the same picture, talking back to them. Outstanding application of that. So let's go back to your argument back.
Well, before we do that, we have to do kind of something that is meme-like and satirical in nature, which we really like. From one of our sponsors.
Let's do that. So let's see what our sponsors have to say. So one day Rob Bell was walking along, not watching where he was going, and he smacked right into the Dalai Lama. Pow! And the Dalai Lama said, "Hey, you got Christianity in my Buddhism." Rob Bell said, "You got Buddhism in my Christianity." And then they decided that it's not all about truth, but experience. And isn't taste one of the best experiences? Two great faiths that taste great together. Reese's Jesus Buddha Cups. You really should try them out. That nice brief word from a sponsor there. We're kind of talking about truth, and a meme is more of it's designed to be an experience, but even as postmodern as much of our society is, they still can't seem to separate experiences from truth propositions, can they? For all the railing they do against the correspondence theory of truth and the idea that truth can be is propositional primarily, they still come back to it over and over. In fact, you can't even say that truth is not primarily propositional without making a proposition that you believe is truthful.
Well, and that's one of the beauties of memes right now and the memeing culture. If we even call people out when they're trying to make a pithy, critical, or critique of the Christian worldview by using a meme, we can begin to unpack that. Wait a second, you're making an argument which actually, by its very definition, asserts a truth claim.
Really?
We have all kinds of people making these arguments that are completely devoid of an examined life. They're completely devoid of that. What a beautiful point of contact for the gospel.
You're trying to say their lives aren't worth living, David. No, come on.
An examined life. They're not living an examined life. And always think of sires.
That's the kind that Socrates said is not worth living, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I always go back to
unexamined life.
And of course that person's going to say, well, but my truth is important. But you just made another objective truth claim.
Right.
And so I think that one of the calls that I would tell evangelicals, and I love, Ron, that you're already doing a better job of it in some ways than I am, is turning the meme back on them. Turning the meme back on them and forcing them to actually have to critically analyze what it is they're saying. Now, even if it's going to devolve into, and what happens most of the time with me is it devolves into an ad hominem and red herring slugfest on their part, or likewise. I mean, they love to slap me upside the head with a red herring. I would say that happens.
I have red herring memes too, by the way.
Or the classic, and I do think that it's a good one to use, is the burning the straw man. That's going to happen time and time again. But if we're going to share memes, not just respond to other people's memes, then let us do so in a method that is actually thought through.
Right.
Let us be consistent and coherent. And that's my biggest call to Christians, is meme with caution. Make sure that your meme points back to the gospel. Make sure that it's consistent with theological principles that you would actually uphold. Because what I find often is a Christian will share a meme with a cross that is in the red, white, and blue of the American flag, right? Or they'll share only 2 people died for you. Jesus willingly died for you. Jesus and an American soldier. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're
You're
kind of
Christian.
that's I mean, I get it. I get what they're trying to say, but you have to, that is where I can see you that's one of the memes I would definitely not repeat. The blurring of the distinction between what it means for Jesus to die for you and what it means for an American soldier to die for you.
Yes.
Not to diminish the importance of the American soldier.
No.
Right. But to say Jesus dying for the sins of the world is a radically different thing than the soldier dying for our freedom.
There's some things that you really should be wary of comparing.
Yes. Well, and I want to actually encourage Christians to share memes. I want to encourage Christians to do meme theology. Why? It begins a discussion. Next, it meets the culture where they are. And finally, it gives us an opportunity to present the gospel, right? If people are responding, even if our non-Christian friend responds to a theological meme that we make, we get now an open opportunity, right, to deal with that. And so I think it's important that we share memes because our society is immersed in it. They are highly used they are highly used by others to communicate and to make arguments in our day. They're a provocateur. That's one of the things that, as I was talking with Don about this, was we want to be provocateurs, right? I actually think that, when I go back to, and I believe it is the Sean McDonald maybe who said, I want to put a rock in their shoe, right? They let us put a digital rock in the person's digital shoe. In fact, I could say we could put a digital boulder in their pathway. And so it's an amazing opportunity to do that. They're so easily shareable, right? They can make a meaningful statement. Let's not pretend that they can't actually do that.
Well, what I like about memes is they can be a very efficient way of making a point. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I say it's worth maybe 394 words tops.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's more than I can usually fit in a tweet, right?
That's right.
And even who's going to read the whole Twitter post that takes up 394 words? So it's you say the image, but it's you need the little caption. You need the meme caption to drive home the point, and you don't need many words to drive. The combination of the image, whoever started this making memes in this way is a genius. Okay?
Somebody is not going to like what I'm about to say.
Okay,
someone is going to say that I'm maybe eisegeting.
Eisegete.
But I actually think that if social media were around in the day of the early church, that Paul would have made memes. I believe that the early gospel witness would have been speaking to people in their culture. Look, I can't do anything about the reality that we live in an expedience-based society, an image-based society, a very egocentrical society. But what I can do is I can grab folks where they are. I can be transformed by the renewing of my mind and at the same time create meaningful cultural artifacts that critique the absurdities of our day. And so my call is for Christians to do so in a thoughtful way. And how do we do that? Well, I've tried to kind of set up a few things. If you're making a meme or you're analyzing someone else's meme, try to understand what the context is into which you're speaking or the context into which the meme was created. And that could be as simple as, well, okay, I realize that this picture of Monty Python is not, it's not making a comment on Monty Python, right? Okay, they've used a recognizable symbol to try to force that into some type of a discussion. So what is the discussion, right? What are the generalities that are being made? If I could make this into a brief inductive argument, what am I saying? or what is the other person saying? Because here's one of the cool things. Even if I misunderstand someone's meme, but I engage them on it, they can maybe give me some clarity, which will actually, again, result in meaningful communication. Look, we live in a toxic age of social media. It's like Christians oftentimes can't even have a forward, honest, and sincere conversation
with
about
each other.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I'll be honest. I have been trying to have a real conversation with a notable apologist for over a week. This individual has no desire, it seems, at least at this point, has no desire to genuinely engage me.
So what platform are you trying to do this, or just by email or something?
Facebook.
Okay.
Where you have more content when it comes to characters and actual opportunity to engage.
Right.
I keep saying, listen, I don't know if you are able to get my tone, brother, but I love you and I'm coming to you in sincerity. And I get pithy, brief comments that don't deal with any of the things that I'm saying.
Well, just to
Right.
go back to something you said a few minutes ago, because it has to do with what is available in particular cultures to communicate.
Yeah.
And you go back to the early church, or even the ministry of Jesus, for example. And no, they didn't have memes, but they did use visible symbols that they pointed to.
Yes.
You whited sepulchres, and he's standing in front of a graveyard, and they know exactly what he's talking about. And then he goes on from there. Paul uses the unknown God, something everybody was familiar with. So he points to that, and then the discussion can begin.
Yes.
Right. And so, well, all we're doing with memes is using something people are familiar with. In this case, Monty Python. Anyone our age knows who that is.
Hey, my son.
Some people even younger than us do.
My 18-year-old was like trying to tell me about Monty Python, and he was, "Oh, Dad, it's so great." I mean, he even has like a Monty Python T-shirt, right? Only a flesh wound one, right?
Only a flesh wound, exactly.
He knows more about Monty Python than I do, and we've got an in-between gap here.
Right. So that's what you're arguing is you're doing fundamentally the same thing as was going on then. We're just using a somewhat different medium to accomplish that.
Yes.
And so we need to take care to make sure that what we're doing is understandable, if it is gospel related.
Yes.
That can hopefully spur additional discussion. And one of the things that I do with social media is I'm not always trying to argue with the individual with whom I disagree, but rather we engage in a discussion for what I call the lurkers, those who are watching what is going on and may never interact with it, but they have a sort of an interesting, how do I want to phrase this? An interesting situation, because they don't have to think about what their next answer is going to be, so they can actually focus on what is being said.
Good point.
And let me say this, Don and Ron. One of the probably evils of our age when it comes to millennials, Gen X, we were not digital natives. I'm so sorry about that. And neither were you guys. We were not immersed in the digital culture from the very beginning. And so going back to media theorists, and I hope I'm never like boring you with media theorists, but when I think about McLuhan, because he was very, very impactful on me when it comes to my understanding of media theory, he says that old digital or old non-media natives, the old culture that did not grow up into the actual interactions that are going on. And when we think about the digital culture, we process those things differently.
Mm-hmm.
I see so often in the millennials and Gen Xers and the baby boomers on almost yelling on social media platforms. As Christians, we must reject that. Our memes aren't to be yelling at people. there to be corrective tools, but we need to really step back and see. And I love what you said there. People are watching you.
Right.
There are the people who are seeing how you're behaving. And so when we meme, we need to be mindful of that as well. We need to live an examined digital life too. And that's really one of my calls when it comes to memeing. How are we sharing the gospel? Are we thinking through this? So again, I'd always say, try to understand the context, observe the generalities that you're making, even setting out some of the inductive arguments that you're making. Is this consistent with the Christian worldview? And if I'm critiquing someone else, I'm going to point out the inconsistencies within the non-Christian worldview that's being propagated, but then always turn things back to point to the gospel.
Sure.
Especially in those crazy theological memes that are made all the time. And we could show hundreds of thousands of them, right?
Yeah. It is because it is so public, we need to be even more circumspect about what we're doing. My wife and I, Joy, and you haven't met her, but she's way smarter than I am. But we learned that in the 1990s. We're kind of some of the original AOL folks. We are so original, we don't even have numbers behind our screen names, and we still have the same screen names. and we signed in to be able to talk with Jehovah's Witnesses, because at the time, you could actually carry on lengthy discussions in the posting rooms. And we would do long posts, maybe multi-part posts. But we discovered pretty early on that you would have one or two or three maybe who would really try to argue the issues with you. And so we also discovered that there were many, as it turns out, who were simply reading both sides. We had several who came to the faith, never contacted us one time on AOL, but would email later on in a discussion. One or the other of us, Doc Bob, who we've had on before, was an elder, Watchtower elder, Jehovah's Witness elder, 15 years. And he's reading the exchanges back and forth, checking and verifying information. Eventually he emailed Joy, and they started carrying on a discussion. I suggest these meme formats can accomplish the same thing if they are done well. They can be provocative, engaging, and hopefully the lurkers who are not invested in refuting or anything can be considering what it is that you're talking about.
I like that term, lurkers. I think that is very good. I'll steal that term in my paper. Say that it started with you, though, and then I'll make sure that I footnote this particular episode of your podcast.
Yeah.
Well, just remember from a Calvinist perspective that God ordains the ends as well as the memes. So,
there you go.
So you can have a very fruitful theological discourse by using memes, obviously.
Yeah. And I would, there's a great example, of you're making a funny, relatable parody even, or maybe even a little bit of a self-deprecating humor piece. And that's good. And someone might state, right, what's that all mean? What's that all about?
Right.
Well,
right?
It could lead to a discussion.
Opens the door. And so I think they're so useful. Man, I wish Christians would be not only informed and thinking about it, but take advantage of it. Not everyone's going to create a webcast. Not everyone's going to create a podcast.
Right.
But anybody who has a smartphone can go to a meme generator or a GIF generator
Image
and
flip.
put something together. And that's going to grab people's attention, even in you say, well, everybody shares memes. Exactly. That's why.
That's why. Right.
And so meme to the glory of God, meme in a formed way and in an informed way.
Spurgeon would meme, no doubt about this.
Oh, man, I'd love to read some of those pithy memes, man. They'd be great because he was such a wordsmith too. So concise,
Well, I mean, we technically did, when you look up the Wikipedia page on memes, you can see that we had them before the computer age.
Yes.
The Kilroy was here. Now, I grew
up.
Well, you remember that, Don, don't you?
I do, absolutely, yeah.
And it was a World War II thing that persisted on into our generation, where you'd see train boxcars go by with Kilroy was here, spray painted on the boxcar, or look at a bridge underpass, and there it was. And how did that start? It started somewhere in the South Pacific, and people were drawing these things everywhere they went, so leaving their mark. What was the message? The message was really, it was American GIs have been here initially, and then after that, I think it probably was American veterans or somebody who is imitating American veterans.
You know what was funny is I had read in one of the research articles that I had done, that I had looked at, that the Germans believed that Kilroy was a American spy that infiltrated. Yeah, that had infiltrated the Third Reich. So are you ready?
That's what we wanted them to think.
It just demonstrates that there's a relatableness,
right?
But there's also an interpretive element that sticks in someone's mind.
Yeah.
We are very much enamored with the visual, but don't just let the visual speak, put words with it, and use it as a rock to put in someone's shoe. And that's just a key thing for me, because you never know how far that meme can go. And that's one of the beautiful things about it. And you never know, for eternity's sake, how far that meme can go. And someone might say, oh, Dave, you're being so silly about this. Why would you spend this time? This is not an apologetics issue. I think it is. I think we defend the Christian faith both by being offensive and defensive. It's a two-sided coin, to quote my dear friend Adam Cochran. And so live an informed life and be thinking about how you can present the gospel in multiple ways.
How many times do we just absorb things from our culture without thinking about them?
Osmosis. We've talked about that before. We get our worldviews mostly by osmosis. We don't think about it. It just infiltrates our brain through the media that we're involved with.
Douglas Rushkoff, in his book, Program or Be Programmed, and Douglas Rushkoff used to make frontline documentaries. He's now kind of a media theorist. And one of the things that he had talked about when both I met him and when I heard him speak and when I read his book, he presents this idea that we can either be just media consumers all the time, or we can be informed media producers. I filter that through the Christian worldview. We can oftentimes shape the conversation to the gospel by using the tools of the culture to do so. Memes are not going away. They're going to continue to be made. They're going to be continued to be adaptive. They're going to continue to evolve, but we can jump right in there and point them to the gospel. That's what we're called to do.
I want to tell you kind of a funny little family story here on this idea of communicating to culture. My son, we were sharing a little bit before the program about life in the Vino household. My son was an apologist, natural born, loved to argue, would argue at the drop of a hat, and he would often drop the hat. My daughter was more reticent. She didn't really understand it. She didn't like the arguing and stuff. But when she got in high school, she was supposed to write a persuasive paper, and she wanted to write on abortion. Well, several things happened. One is her title was Abortion, Nazi Germany, and Slavery, when murder is socially acceptable, or something like that. And the teacher said, well, you can't really do that because there's no evidence that that abortion is murder. And so that got her really quite engaged. And so she started wearing a T-shirt to school with a picture of a trash can that said, "This is no place for a baby." Now she's communicating a message.
Yeah.
That could engage people in discussion. Secondly, she then wrote a persuasive paper arguing that abortion is murder. And we said, no, you can't use the Bible, because she probably gets one or two of these every year and doesn't want to do it. So she just used scientific data and made her case that it is human, and humans have rights by virtue of being human, and you are infringing on those rights by executing them for a capital crime that they did not commit. The teacher changed her mind. Next thing that happens, see, this is how this can engage others. just a simple thing like a T-shirt. Is a teacher set up a debate between her and the pro-abortion side, which is the rest of the class. And she said, well, what do we do? I said, well, first, here's their arguments. So you need to address their arguments because you're going first, knock them down, and then make your case. So that's what she did. She made her arguments, and it was the opposition's time to come up. And they stood there and they said, I don't have anything left to say. I don't know what to do. But because of a T-shirt, you can get engaged in discussions. Because of memes, you can get engaged in meaningful discussions. And is, if at all possible, to be gentle and respectful.
Amen. Amen. Always, always, always. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak on a subject that a lot of people don't really talk about, but everybody uses, everyone engages, right? And so, again, we're called, I think, as informed Christians to step out of the cultural malaise and then to try to bring light into that darkness. And I think we have the perfect opportunity. You don't have to be a theologian to do it. You don't even have to be a great informed apologist to do it.
Right.
You can do it. I'm sorry that my phone did not get turned off. My bad. Second time. I should have hit it the first time and I didn't. And so I apologize. Sometimes people want money from me. That's why they call me. I'm on the lam. I'm always running from.
Well, that never happens to us because people know we don't have any money.
This is what live looks like, guys.
I'm so sorry. I usually have my phone off, and I forgot this time. Sorry, okay. I was so busy creating memes before we got going.
Okay. Remember, just drop the Baptist guilt when you're with us. We're good with that.
That's right. Don, you keep telling me there's your meme. Drop the Baptist guilt.
Okay. Yeah. Ron, the apologist, I tried to.
Oh yeah, I was telling you both. I hope that's not public to everybody else.
No, it's not. I was going to read it, and I thought, well, maybe I don't want to.
You can both read it too.
Okay, so memes are important. We're not saying don't use memes. What we're saying is, in particular categories, especially, take care to make sure what it is that you are sharing or writing. And that would carry true with political memes as well.
Yes,
you can use satirical political memes, but make sure that it's at least accurate.
Yes.
Right.
As a Christian, we really do want to, if we're sharing or liking or commenting on the meme that someone else has shared that is theological, we actually do have a responsibility, right? We're held accountable for those words that we say. So we need to actually be evaluating what is the theological truth claim, and is it biblical, and is it actually consistent?
Okay, here's one. Someone sent a meme yesterday that I really wanted to believe because it was on the whole greening of America sort of thing. And it started out saying America has 15, or it doesn't say it, at the bottom it says America has 15 coal-operated power plants. Preceding that, it has all of these other countries and the amount of coal-fired power plants they have. And I went, 15. Is that accurate? I mean, if it's accurate, it's an interesting statistic.
Yes.
On a well-constructed meme. And I go and I look, and what I discover is it's an interesting meme, but it isn't a true meme. There are in 2019 there were 241 coal-fired plants. So I had to email the individual, send it to me, and say, you might want to be aware of this before you think about sharing it again.
Yes.
All right.
That is responsible memeing. And I would say that here's the great thing too. And I think if you meme and it's wrong and someone calls you out, thank them.
Yes.
And repent.
Right.
And I would even go to the fact to say, don't remove it. Let your mistake be seen. And your acknowledgement of, and maybe even edit it. I shared this earlier. I found it's not true. Please look at the discussion below. Someone said, well, Dave, you should have just removed it. No, actually, I want people to see that I'm not above reproach
Right.
in the fact that I'm not uncorrectable. I am correctable.
Right.
And again, it presents that Christian ethic. And that's
Right.
such a crucial piece in
Right.
our world. Don't just be contentious, right? But you can be provocative and not contentious.
Absolutely. And we are going to wander out of here now. And Ron has added, since you were here last, something that my wife really enjoyed.
Oh, really? I'm glad. So, yeah, if you're going to wander out of here, who better to wander out than with me? Because I'm just, they call me the Wanderer, right? The Wanderer. Okay, so yeah, let's give credit to whom credit is due. Are you ready?
We're ready, baby.
My computer's a little slow. Here we go. Our resident cult leader profiler is Neil before me. Our wardrobe manager is See How It Fits You. Our culinary services come from Chef Ham and Cheese. Our tinfoil hypervisioner is Just In Case. Jehovah's Witnesses coverage comes from Armageddon and The Opposer. Our Mormon Archives manager is Polly Gummas. Our Liberal Denominations Bureau chief is Lucy Goosey. Transgender issues coverage is provided by Ben Hur, our special correspondent for cults based on the Hindenburg disaster and flying turkeys. Ode to Humanity. Our fact-checking supervisor is Joe Pullen. Technical assistance comes through Murky Research. Our legal advisors are at the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham and Howe. Our grievance resolution director is Yvonne Pisami, and our director of privacy assurance is Wiretapping. Original idea sourcing comes from Drew A. Blank. The Unknown Webcast is a production of Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. in cooperation with Emergency Manicure Productions, both of whom are solely responsible for this content, though you will never prove that in a court of law.
Never, never. And unfortunately, we missed the music.
Oh, I would have rewind. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, there's that little checkbox that I had to.
Next time, the little checkbox, the audio checkbox. Next,
guys,
next
I want to thank you so much for just all you have done to allow me to speak on these things and called me to think about things. It's just been a blessing always to get to come on and to visit with you guys. I admire both of you and respect you both greatly.
Thank you.
And David and I are going to be at the Southern Baptist Convention in a couple of weeks, wreaking havoc over there. So that'll be cool.
All kinds of crazy.
Okay.
All right. So everyone else, we will see you whenever.